So, continuing on about Athens. So today we're going to be talking about the education and other cultural aspects about the city-state of Athens. We'll see how far we get. That was a funny comment there, Tom. All right, so one of the things that we talked about, education was required for all males in the city-state of Athens. If you were a boy, you got an education. And if you were a male, you became a citizen at age 20. The United States has us become citizens at age 18. This is age 20. But one of the things that's kind of a bummer, you know, we see all these good things about Athens, that they focused on freedom. You know, they invented democracy. They have this idea of creating art and focusing on education. But girls weren't given the same importance in Athens as they should have. We know that boys and girls are equal, and anything a boy can do, a girl can do, and likewise. But the girls in Athens, they were not citizens. There were a couple girls that wound up becoming influential, but no one ever taking political power, and like I said, no citizens if you're female. Some girls did receive an education at home. You could have a tutor, but that was only for the richest of the rich. For the most part, most girls didn't get any education. And another thing, so unlike Sparta, where we had girls having a lot of rights and responsibilities and freedoms, in Athens, girls couldn't do anything to take part with war. So we didn't have any women serving on councils. We didn't have women fighting. They couldn't do anything with business, so we didn't have women merchants or shopkeepers. And they weren't even allowed to be teachers or anything like that. So unfortunately, it was very unfair, the system Athens had between boys and girls, which once again is really contrasting what they said was their values of art, education, trade, all of these things, if they didn't let half their people really take part in it. So that's kind of a bummer about Athens right there. Now on to art and beauty. Now, beauty, I loved how Kirthana mentioned that in the Do Not. Beauty was considered an incredibly important thing. They thought of the ideals of people. A lot of us probably have the wrong idea about the Greeks because we see all their statues and like all of the guys are like super ripped like Hercules. That's not what the Greeks really like look like. This is what they thought the ideal version of a person. So you'll see that every girl in Greek statues has like the same exact body basically. And that's because that's what they thought the ideal version of a girl was. And every boy you see has like super gigantic muscles. And they said, well, that's the ideal of a boy, but that's not actually the reality of the people. And so they had sculptures all over the place, all over the place. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these statues often do not have enough clothes, and I am sorry about that, but that's just how the Greeks thought. They thought, you know, they were proud of the human body, and they thought that was an awesome thing. And they wanted to, you know, have that be, I don't know, shown. Sorry. But we see there's going to be lots of pottery, so we're going to see lots of things called amphoras, which look like basic giant vases, and they have designs on them. So that's going to be one of the most common things. You're going to see lots of statues, lots of paintings. If you do just a quick Google image search, we can say, here's what a Greek amphora would be, and they would often have scenes of mythology, scenes of life. So amphoras, very, very common in Greek. And you probably have seen many amphoras, and that's a great thing. And that's what they would put the olive oil in. That's what they would go and, you know, just use all the time. Slavery was part of Athens and the rest of Greece. And slaves typically were people captured in war. And sometimes people were born free and then sold into slavery. Some people, if you were a child of a slave, you were then also a slave. And it's just pretty crazy that the Greeks, once again, like I said, the Athens focused on freedom, but we see they didn't have freedom for everybody, not for girls, and not if they considered you a slave. So this is one of the things that they thought it was bad to enslave a Greek. So, but it did happen. It did happen though, where, like I said, sometimes free parents sold themselves or sold their children into slavery, which is kind of crazy. I can't imagine doing something like that, like selling my own child into slavery. So that is going to be what we're talking about with Athens. We're going to get a little bit started into Sparta and finish up more about Sparta tomorrow. So Sparta, we see, is located right here on our Peloponnesian Peninsula. We have that big black arrow pointing down to it. And as Khan told us in the very beginning of this class, Sparta focused on war and strength. And one of the things about Sparta is they had super strict laws. And we believe why was because there was an early slave revolt, because the Spartans used slaves too. And the slaves said, hey, this isn't fair, this isn't right. And they fought up and killed a lot of Spartans. So then they created the strictest laws and demanded that everybody puts Sparta in front of themselves, in front of their family, everything. And one of the things that's kind of a bummer is they don't have any art. They don't have any, like, we don't have statues made by the Spartans, really. We don't have paintings made by the Spartans or amphoras. They really only focused on war. Now, Spartan government was the oligarchy, which we've learned about and will be on your Quizy-Poo, ruled by a few. Now, we have a time where we are going to have 2 kings in Sparta, but there's going to be the Council of Elders as well. And one of the things about Sparta was you weren't really allowed to just say whatever you wanted. You couldn't just say, hey, I don't like this law, or you really couldn't complain. And the people that were in charge of those elders were military leaders. The kings were basically generals. We're going to see that, a king will always go off to war, and that's why they had 2 kings, so they could have one that stayed behind. But we're going to pause it there and talk more about Spartan daily life tomorrow. I just wanted to give us a little introduction to Sparta as we finished up with Athens. I'm stopping the recording